Back again with another edition of the Kaufman Corner podcast with you as always, the good doctor, Dr. Rany Jazayerli. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB as we talk some Royals baseball. Finally, time to get one of the founders of Baseball Prospectus's thoughts on this trade deadline. What does Rany think? It was a pretty big one. I know Rany was all giddy and excited based upon our text as he liked what the Royals did at the deadline. Is JJ Picollo the king of the trade deadline? What do they actually get with some of the players that are coming over? How much better are they now? Are they good enough to make the playoffs? How much better are they in 26, 27? What should be the plan for this offseason if we've got time? The Royals have won 9 out of their last 13. How good are they really? Should we be worried about Carlos Estevez? We're talking about it right here, right now. Kaufman Corner Podcast.
You're listening to the Kaufman Corner Podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Royals, breaking down the Royals like no one else can. Kaufman Corner is hosted by Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro. Rany is a co-founder of Baseball Prospectus, author of Rany on the Royals, and a former columnist for Grantland. You're listening to the Kaufman Corner Podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Royals, breaking down the Royals like no one else can. Kaufman Corner is hosted by Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro. Rany is a co-founder of Baseball Prospectus, author of Rany on the Royals, and a former columnist for Grantland, The Ringer, and The Athletic. Soren is the award-winning afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. Kaufman Corner is proudly brought to you by David Starnes Allstate Insurance, covering all the important things in your world. Home, business, life, and even the fun stuff as well. Motorcycle, boat, ATV, you name it, get with Dave and he'll have you covered. Give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Visit them online or stop into any of their locations, including North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. Don't put those insurance needs off any longer. Get with Dave today. He'll give you peace of mind for the things in your life most important to you. And now, here are your hosts, Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro.
Thank you, Curtis. That'll teach us to try to go ahead and, do things in advance. Had all kinds of gremlins going on because I actually had everything ready to go a long time ago. So I'll go back to just, cramming it in at the end, Rany. First of all, buddy, good to talk to you after a trade deadline that I know you're at least excited about. You called it a, quote, I'm doing air quotes here for those that are getting us on the podcast, fun trade deadline.
It was fun. Anytime your team makes 3 transactions, on the final day, it's exciting. The problem is sometimes you can confuse movement for progress. And the question is, the Royals made a lot of movement. Did they actually make progress? I think they did. I think that JJ Picollo, he set a very difficult task for himself when he said out loud that the Royals were not, I'm paraphrasing here, but the Royals were not buyers or sellers, that they were just trying to get better. Like, what does that mean? Like, everybody wants to get better. How do you get better? If you get better for 2025, you're supposed to get worse for 2026 and beyond. It's very difficult to be better on both ends of the season. But he found a way to do that, I think, because he had the one weapon in his arsenal that we've talked about as the player that he could move, that would be dealing from such a position of strength that it would actually make the team better both now and in the future. But we didn't know if he'd have the balls to do it, if he'd have the opportunity to do it. And we're talking, of course, about Freddie Fermin. We talked about it as long ago as last deadline and last year. And didn't pull it off then. And obviously the Royals were in a different position then. They were going to the playoffs in all likelihood. They didn't have to make a desperate move. But I think he pulled off a trade here where he did exactly what we wanted him to do, which is the Royals are probably, we love Freddie Fermin. The Royals adore him as a player, but they're not going to miss him that much. And they desperately needed pitching now. And more, increasingly it looked like they were probably going to need to go out and get some pitching for next season, for 2026 and in 2027 even. And what we couldn't count on, but we were certainly hoping for, was the ultimate wild card here was AJ Preller, because the Padres, if you have a guy to trade, the team that you really, really hope is interested in him is the San Diego Padres. And the Padres were desperate for catching. I mean, we talked about the risk of trying to trade for a catcher at the deadline because he's got to learn an entirely new pitching staff. I mean, there's some risk there, of course, but the Padres catching situation was dire especially for a team that, I mean, is in the playoffs as we speak, and it was came in today 3 games behind the Dodgers for the division. I mean, they are in all likelihood playoff bound, but their starting catcher was a guy named Elias Diaz, who's been terrible. And their backup is Martin Maldonado, who couldn't hit in his prime and is now 38 years old. I mean, you may recall Martin Maldonado from his brief sojourn with the Royals, was it 6 years ago? Yeah, 6 years ago. But such a
or his World Series winning run with the Astros.
With the Astros. I mean, he's such a
let's not act like he's a troll.
No, not at all. I was going to say he's such a respected defensive catcher that, I mean, he couldn't hit in his prime, but teams still loved him because he could frame as good as anybody, could throw. But I don't know how his framing is now, but his throwing has gone to pot. I mean, he's thrown out 7 of 53 base runners this year, 3 of 42 last year with the White Sox. So he can't even throw it anymore. The point is they needed an upgrade. They needed competent catching, and Freddie Fermin is nothing if not a competent catcher. And AJ Preller is, he's one of the most interesting GMs of the sport, because, I mean, he's done overall, you have to say he's done a good job with the Padres. They're consistently competitive, and yet the man is constantly willing to pay in terms of prospects and maybe overpay in terms of prospects, as we saw just a few hours before this trade when he gave up Leo DeVries, was one of the 3 or 4 best prospects in the sport, to get, I mean, an incredible reliever, but a reliever in Mason Miller. And we'll talk more about that and how that relates to JJ's past history trading in a little bit here. But he's willing to move guys. And what I thought was really interesting, I'm gonna read here from everybody's favorite newsletter, the Joshian newsletter. I know he's a huge hit among our listeners, but he sent this out evaluating the Mason Miller trade 2 hours before the Royals traded Freddie Fermin to the Padres. And he was down on the trade, the Padres trade for Mason Miller, in part because it put the Padres in a position where they had no leverage. Let me read from this really quickly here.
Okay.
Where this bank shot theory, this idea that that Preller will use the presence of Miller to trade relievers for a hitter, where this bank shot theory loses me is in the order of events. Everyone Preller is negotiating with now knows that he's on the line. He has stacked up relievers like Cordwood, and he still has Gavin Sheets playing left field and 2 backup catchers batting 9th, and way too much Jose Iglesias for anyone's taste. The market knows he has a team with the second worst isolated power, blah, blah, blah. Basically, yes, and then he ends with, and 5 hours to fix any of it. 2 hours later, the Royals traded Freddie Fermin to the Padres for 2 pitchers who aren't bad pitchers, but pitchers who had just basically lost their spot on the roster to Mason Miller and JP Sears, who were the guys that Preller had just gotten for Leo DeVries. So he makes the trade for this incredible closer, but suddenly has too much pitching on his roster and has 5 hours to upgrade his offense. The evidence, all the circumstances are there for a general manager to overpay to get exactly what he needs. And the Royals were in the right spot to benefit from that. And all credit to JJ for having already opened up, lines of communication and being ready to swoop in when that happened. And he got 2 pitchers who are going to help the Royals more in 2025 than Freddie Fermin would, and in all likelihood more in 2026 and 2027, because, this year it means Salvador Perez will be able to catch more. And next year it means Carter Jensen will have a place to hopefully ease his way into the lineup. So that trade alone, I just thought was the perfect balance of keeping this team on the fringes of contention this year, while not only not hurting their future, but actually getting more years of club control. You're getting Ryan Bergert for 5 years after this, and I think now that Stephen Kolek is in the minor leagues, I think they're also going to have 5 more years of Stephen Kolek after this year. For Freddie Firmino, I think they had 3 years of after this, and who's in his 30s already, and both of those guys are in their mid-20s. I think Berger might be 28, but they're both younger than Freddie Firmino. So it's really an incredible, incredible job of helping your team both now and in the future. I was very, very impressed with that move.
All right, I want to talk about some things maybe they could have done differently. We had this one I put up from Kopman. Could we have sent Carlos Estevez for Leo DeVries?
No, not at all. No.
But it's a good question. It's a good question. The answer is no. And Kopman, I know, is a good baseball fan, but Mason Miller is like the nastiest of nasty. Even though his ERA, he was a little banged up. His numbers won't blow you away, but the top end velocity is like 103 or something, and he's really nasty. So this is the Padres saying we want the best of the best for the back end, and when he's on, that's what he is. But it does beg the question: could he said I was joking, hence the smiley. Good. I know you know baseball, like I said, but I think it does beg the question: could they have? One of the things we talked about was they could buy and sell. They only bought, right? Should they have gotten into the middle of the reliever market with Carlos Estevez? Let's hold today's game aside.
Right.
Like what could he have been in the mix? Because some of the prices were pretty steep on what people were paying for closers.
I don't think so. Because I don't think Carlos Estevez is bringing back, not even, forget Mason Miller prices, but like even the price of a decent reliever with a couple of years of club control. You were getting maybe a top 15 prospect in the farm system. He just was not bringing that kind of stuff back. Mason Miller is, like you said, one of the hardest throwing relievers. He has a 268 career FIP. He's a difference maker. Yohan Duran, who was traded for 2 top 100 prospects to the Phillies by the Twins, has, one of the hardest sinkers in Major League history. I mean, he's an extreme ground ball pitcher who's also an extreme strikeout pitcher. Bobby Witt might be able to hit game-winning grand slams against him, but most mortals cannot. So I get the value there. Carlos Estevez is probably a good middle reliever in an ideal situation, who is stretched a little bit to be a closer. He's making $11 million a year. He got 1 more year of club control. Could you have moved him? Yes, but I don't think you would have gotten much.
See, I'll disagree. I don't disagree with that. He wouldn't have brought back a big price, but I disagree with that. He's a good middle reliever. He is a guy that somebody's going to be on base, but he doesn't wet himself, and that is a big part of being the closer, right? He knows he's not Wade Davis in his prime. He knows somebody's probably going to get on base. He doesn't freak out, and I've heard somebody say, "Well, he's a great closer when you have a 2-run lead." Or he's a great or he's great at maximizing his abilities. If he's got a 2-run lead and nobody's on base, he attacks. And then he nibbles a little bit more. If he gives up the solo home run, now it's a 1-run lead. Then he nibbles a little bit more and tries to stay away from just, going right at guys. I give him more credit than you do as far as what he does. Like, I think he's like the Urseg as the fireman doesn't work without a guy who doesn't wilt in the 9th. And he doesn't wilt normally.
I actually agree with you in the aggregate there. I love him in the closer's role as long as it's not a high leverage closer, which is kind of an oxymoron. But like, I love him in a 2 or 3-run lead today. He pitched. He got into some trouble today because he came in with a 5-run lead. Like, he's the rare pitcher where it is possible he lets up a little bit when the situation is not dire. I'm terrified of him in a playoff game coming in with a 1-run lead on the road in the 9th inning. But the role the Royals have carved out for him this year actually works really well for them. And for that reason too, it's like, I'm not sure that trading him, the trading him might actually hurt the team more than it would help in terms of the prospect you get back. The guy I thought they might actually trade was Hunter Harvey. And I think the issue with Harvey is the act of putting him on the market would make teams skittish. Like, why are you guys trying to trade this guy who can't stay healthy for, 8 minutes? If the Royals think he's healthy and he's pitching healthy right now, there's a chance they might still extract some value from him after trading for him at last year's deadline. I mean, he has actually, he pitched the 9th inning today. They saved Estevez for extra innings. And when they had no margin for error in the 9th, tie game of the on the road, and he pitched a scoreless inning, allowed the Royals to score the 5 runs in the 10th. So if anybody was going to be traded, I thought it would be Hunter Harvey. But I just feel like the amount of talent they were going to get back for those, when you say, could they have bought it and sold? I think they bought and sold in the Freddie Fermin trade alone. Like, I think that was their buying and selling.
Okay.
Because they actually got future talent in Bergert and Kolek more than any talent they could have gotten by trading for a prospect, any of their other players.
I want to ask you this real quick. Does acquiring 3 guys who have started games this year, 2 guys who are starting now, 1 who's starting in the minor leagues, a sign that perhaps, they're really concerned about Bubic and Reagans?
I think it might be more a sign that they're afraid of the shoulders of Alec Marsh and Kyle Wright. Because they went into this season thinking they had 7 or 8 starters. They, had no idea that Alec Marsh was going to miss the start of the season, let alone the entire season. And now I don't know what his career's trajectory is going to be. Kyle Wright may never throw a pitch for the Royals in his career. Pitching is hard. The Royals were unusually, incredibly healthy with the rotation last year. This year is probably more the norm. And you start with 7-8 guys, and by August 1st, you've got 3 healthy dudes in your rotation. So I don't think there's any downside in having 7 healthy pitchers, even if Bubic and Reagans are healthy at the end of the year. They don't know that for sure, but even if they are, I don't think there's anything bad with going into the offseason with 7 starter caliber arms that you think are healthy for the following spring training. And I mean, Kolek's case, there's a chance that he's a reliever in the end, and we'll get into him, but I think he could actually be a really interesting reliever. But they may, they're going to try and stretch him out as a starter, but there's definitely a scenario where he ends up in the bullpen anyway. So you only end up with 2 starter arms from this.
Yeah, which is still pretty good, right? I mean, I don't think anybody's freaking out about the fact that if you only end up with 2, that's still a pretty good haul. Listen, we want to get into JJ Picollo. Is Rany ready to crown him king of the deadline? I will get into that after you hear from our friends at Whataburger and David Starnes Allstate Insurance. David Starnes Allstate Insurance, serving the Kansas City area and all throughout the Midwest. With David Starnes Allstate, it's not just about fender benders. Beyond traditional safeguards, enjoy perks like roadside assistance for unexpected breakdowns, transportation expense coverage when your car is in the shop, auto replacement protection to keep you on the road in style, and much more. You can give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Visit them online or stop into any of their locations, including North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. Your favorites are back. Kansas City now for a limited time at all your KC Whataburger locations. Get the Pico de Gallo burger, 2 large beef patties, 2 slices of pepper jack cheese, Pico de Gallo, and creamy cilantro lime. How about the sweet and spicy bacon burger? 2 large beef patties, American and Monterey Jack cheese, bacon, grilled onions, and topped with sweet and spicy pepper sauce. Or grab the patty melt. Even the honey barbecue chicken strip sandwich. They're all perfect with the Whataburger banana pudding shake. Remember, Whataburger's open 24 hours a day. Breakfast served 11 p to 11 a. And don't forget, you can get all your Whataburger favorites and more by downloading the Whataburger app with the QR code. Whataburger, proud sponsor of the Kaufman Corner podcast. All right, Rany, let's talk a little bit about JJ Picollo and his prowess at the deadline. Where do you sit? Are you ready to crown him king of the deadline?
There may be many kings of the deadline, but I want to give him his props because this is his 3rd full season, in charge of the Royals, and 3 trading deadlines. Obviously, it's way, way, way too early to even evaluate what he has done at this deadline. We can evaluate the thought process here, and we definitely like that. And then you look back 2 years ago, his first deadline. That was the year, he made small but impactful trades for James MacArthur and Nelly Velasquez without giving up anything the Royals will miss. And then traded Aroldis Chapman for Cole Reagans. right? Which wasn't exactly at the deadline, but a mid-season trade, which, assuming Ragans comes back healthy, and frankly, even if he doesn't, what Ragans did last year makes that one of the best, in-season trades any team has made in the last 10 years. I mean, he was the ace of a team that shocked everyone, went to the playoffs, and was phenomenal in the playoffs. So obviously that deadline, I think we can safely say he nailed it. But last year, this is the thing that I find interesting, that I think people maybe we didn't appreciate as much at the time as we do now. He made he made a number of trades last year as the Royals were in this like surprise playoff contender mode, and how with a team that was flawed, but had a chance to go for it. He went for it, and it's the first trade he made. Let's not forget, was trading his supplemental first round pick and Caden Wallace for Hunter Harvey, who got hurt like 17 minutes later. That didn't go well. But to his credit, he knew he still needed a reliever, and he wasn't shy about going out and getting another one. And it was funny because we talk about Mason Miller now and how good he is. Mason Miller was pitching as well, if not better, last year. Really kind of exploded on the scene as one of the best relievers in baseball.
Definitely pitching better last year.
Yeah.
I mean,
his overall, his peripherals are pretty good this year, but he was pitching better last year. He's a sensation, throwing 102, 103, like you said. And, the A's were hopeless, and everyone's like, would they trade Mason Miller? And, the price tag was going to be exorbitant. It was going to be Leo DeVries caliber. But his setup man in Oakland was a guy named Lucas Erceg. And the Royals were able to get Erceg, who wasn't as good as Mason Miller, but didn't throw 103, but 399. And didn't have like, an ERA in the ones, but was a good pitcher whose peripheral numbers were even better than his ERA. I think his ERA was like a little over 3 at the time of the trade. I think most Royals fans couldn't even remember the best prospect they gave up in that trade. Right? They gave up 3 guys. The main name in that was Mason Barnett, who was their 3rd round pick a couple of years ago, was having his best pro season as a starter in AA, starting pitcher. This year, Mason Barnett, who's in AAA, has a 5.67 ERA and a strikeout to walk ratio of less than 2-1 for the A's. I still think he probably will end up being a decent major league reliever, but if he ends up being a reliever and you traded a potential reliever for a lights out now reliever, that's a trade you'll make every time, especially since Erceg has, when they got him, 5 years of club control. They gave up Jared Dickey in that trade, who was their 11th round pick, and he had a 386 slugging as a corner outfielder in A-ball this year. He just got promoted to AA. He might be a 4th outfielder. I don't think they're going to miss him. The 3rd guy, Will Klein, was a reliever they took who threw really hard and had no command and has already been released or waived by the A's. He's in another organization. So even if he does break out, the A's won't get anything from it. So like when you look at the price tag the A's got for Mason Miller and you think about what they got from the Royals for Lucas Erceg, that trade alone is like, wow. Because the year before, the Royals sold and got Cole Ragans. 1 year later, JJ turned around and bought and gave up almost nothing and got an impact reliever, again, not just for 2 months like Aroldis Chapman, but to help him now and in the future. And guess what? The future is this year. And I mean, Lucas Erceg has not been 100% this year, but has still been probably the Royals' best reliever overall this season. And they wouldn't be where they are without him right now. So, and then, let's not forget that even after the trading deadline, somehow he was able to bring in Tommy Pham and Rex Grossman and Yuli Gurriel to help the offense when Vinny Pasquantino got injured. And I'm not saying any of those guys were world beaters, but like Pham and Gurriel were in their lineup in the playoffs, and he managed to get those guys after the trading deadline. You can't trade. Like Gurriel was in AAA with the Astros, I think, or the Braves AAA farm club. So there was a loophole where you can trade for a minor league guy because he wasn't on the 40-man roster. And Pham, I think, was designated for assignment. They were able to pick him up. But like that was impressive work when you consider the rules don't allow you to make trades. So 3 years in a row, it looks like this is something JJ's good at, and credit to him.
Yeah, no, I definitely think he's, been skilled at doing what it is they've decided to do. We will question 26, 27 when it gets here, right? Like we may look at it and be like, wow, look at the depth they've got of the arms, and this has allowed them to do this and that, whatever. But I mean, I think there is I want to be clear. They've made the team better. They were playing well as they did it, which gave them a little bit of incentive to do it, and they've continued to play well since the deadline, right? So, and if they power into the playoffs, man, tip of the cap. June 15th, I was done. I did not think they were a playoff team. I thought this was the regression year after the surprising year where you step forward. It's the step back to hopefully take 2 steps forward in the future. And I am hoping to admit that, hoping to have to say, you know what, I was totally wrong. And what a great play. All that being said, if it's to get in there and whimper out in the wild card in a 3-game series with the wild card, and then to go 78 wins and 74 wins, we're not going to trumpet this. We're not going to be beating the drum the way we are right now. We're beating the drum because we're in the midst of a 9-4 run, and they certainly and they filled all the theoretic holes that they had. And so I do want to caution that there is ultimately time will tell whether or not this was a success. This year will tell. I mean, they're still not in a playoff spot. These moves were not made to win 83 games and watch the playoffs on TV. Agreed? Or do you think they were? Do you think the control of the pitching is enough to say that even if they don't make the playoffs, this was a good deal because they've got controllable arms that they clearly needed?
The Fermin deal in particular, I think, was a good deal because even if they don't make the playoffs, like I think a playoff run would be a bonus when you look at the club control here. They're looking at Burgert and as being a part of the rotation.
Hold on. Let me take it a step back. You're saying the playoffs are the bonus. This was a move for the future. All this was a move for the future.
The Fermin trade, I think you could argue that the Fermin trade was worth it, even if you know for certain that you're not going to the playoffs this year. I really do, because Burgert is, he probably a number 4 starter. We can talk a little bit about his repertoire and stuff in a moment here, but is a starter who seems reasonably healthy. He's older. I think, like I said, he's is he 28? I think he's 28. No, he's 25. Maybe it's Kolek. I think it's Kolek who's 28. That's right. He's only 25. But I think he has the repertoire to be a starting pitcher in the major leagues. And again, you have him under club control. Actually, 6 years. He's a rookie. He's still technically a rookie. I think they slotted him in as the Royals' number 7 prospect. So you're gonna have him for 6 more years. I think about the blueprint of the Cole Reagans trade, where instead of trading for a quote unquote prospect, Burger technically still qualifies as a prospect, but he might be a little bit underrated because he's already in the major leagues. And sometimes major league ready players who don't have elite upside get overlooked in favor of like the shiny guy, the shiny 18 or 19-year-old in A-ball who could be a superstar, but could end up, not making it all. And then Kolek, he's the older player. But I think the potential for him, he has a new changeup. We'll talk about that in a bit. But the potential for him to be more of a strikeout guy if he goes back to the bullpen. Yeah, I mean, for Freddie Fermin, who, again, one thing I really want to emphasize here also is that one of the things I love about this trade the most is precisely the fact that Freddie Fermin was so beloved by everybody. The fans, I mean, it's funny because I think the Royals did an incredible job in this trade, and yet you don't see anybody online or otherwise talking about how, the Padres got fleeced, got stiffed. All the comments you'll see anywhere is just like, take care of our boy Freddie. Like, we love that guy. You're going to love him in San Diego, right? There's this idea that, he's an incredible story. He was a complete non-prospect who just worked his ass off, became a major leaguer, understood his role. Salvador Perez was, his mentor and good friend, and like did so many things on the margins. So you talk about the little things, right? From throwing guys out to, game-winning hits to, I think he's put down some great squeeze bunts from a catcher, all the things you could do. And precisely because of that, and the same thing in the clubhouse, the front office, they all loved him. And so precisely because of that, the fact that JJ traded him anyway is actually one of the more impressive things he's done since he became the general manager. And one of the things that he's done that differentiates him from Dayton more than most. Right? Sam McDowell actually had a really good column in the Star the day after the trade, making essentially this point that Freddie Fermin was emotionally a very difficult player to trade, and precisely because of that, trading him was a sign. I think he put it the words he used, business is business, and this was a business move. It was a move to make the Kansas City Royals better and to place, cold, hard reality, logic, dare I say, analytics ahead of emotion and loyalty, and all those things are important. But JJ was willing to put all that aside in service of making his team better. And in order to do it, it couldn't be a marginal decision. Like, I don't think he makes this trade if it makes the Royals a little bit better because Freddie Fermin is so beloved. He had to win the trade, and he did. I think he got enough extra in the deal to make it worth his while. So that's I think an underrated part of this, is that the fact that they did it despite Fermin's likability is a really good sign, actually, that they won the deal.
But Yastrzemski and Grichuk were brought in to go to the playoffs.
Yeah, of course. But I don't think Yastrzemski, they gave up Junior Marte, who there's some nice buzz about him. I like him. I have a feeling he's a reliever in the end. I don't think he was a top 10 prospect in the system. He might be top 15. But Yastrzemski, which they traded. I mean, the trade was announced, I think, at like 14 minutes after the deadline. Like, you talk about a last minute trade. And JJ said afterwards that I think it started an hour before the deadline. They hadn't even really started discussions. But I think he realized, having made all the other trades, that like, you got a chance now to actually go to the playoffs. But your trade deadline is incomplete if you don't get one more hitter, a left-handed hitter who can actually get on base and lengthen your lineup. And I'll give him credit because, Yastrzemski was not a guy you heard a lot of talk about. I mean, until right before the deadline, I don't think that the Giants were definitely sellers. So you talk about how the Royals need to make sure that they're not just waiting for phone calls at the deadline, that they're the ones calling and finding out who's out there. And clearly they had their ear to the ground, that they knew that someone like Mike Yastrzemski was available. I really like Yastrzemski enough that 2 months of Yastrzemski I'm willing to give up Junior Marte for. I'm gonna throw a funny stat at you. Okay, I'm gonna name 7 players right now: Mookie Betts, Jose Ramirez, Freddie Freeman, Manny Machado, Corey Seager, Juan Soto, and Trey Turner. Can we all agree that those are really good players?
Yeah, they all are. I think all of them are kind of having down years, though. Yeah,
okay, but I'm going to say their career arc,
yes,
pretty good. I would say, frankly, I think all 7 will probably end up in the Hall of Fame one day. Corey Seager, Trey Turner are probably a couple years, left. They need to be a little more productive for 2 or 3 more years, but I think they'll get there. I think, and then Soto, Machado, Freeman, Mookie Betts, Jose Ramirez. Clearly, those 7 players are the only 7 players in baseball, or at least position players, to have had at least 2 wins above replacement for each of the last 7 years, from 2019 through this season, 2025. 7 guys, 7 consecutive 2-win seasons. Why am I bringing this up?
Because the 2 players combined do that as well.
No, because there's actually 8 players. Mike Yastrzemski is the 8th. He has had 2-win season 7 years in a row. Only 7 other guys I just mentioned. Only 7 to do it. The hilarious thing is he's never had a 3-win season. So he is about as consistent, and 2 to 3 win basically is an average player or a really good role player. And you can get to 2.5 wins if you're average, if you're playing every day. But he's more of a platoon guy. And what we can talk about is platoon split, which I think actually makes him even more useful to the Royals, because as long as you don't play him against lefties, he's even more valuable. He has a large platoon split. Let's talk about it. He's got a 150-point difference between what he hits against righties and what he hits against lefties. Grichuk has, and this is for career. I don't look at single season splits. 100 at bats, 150 at bats. One season you could get wild numbers, and it doesn't reflect the real ability. Look at their full career. So 150-point difference. Grichuk, he's hit lefties 93 points higher, his OPS against lefties, than righties over his career. But you put them in a platoon. You got Grichuk 828 career OPS against lefties. Yastrzemski 804 career OPS against righties. 800 is like a really good player. And the only players on the Royals right now who have an 800 OPS are Bobby Witt and Maikel Garcia. And last year, the only player with an 800 OPS was Bobby Witt. Like 800, if you could get their career performance in a platoon, we're talking about the second or third best player on the Kansas City Royals. Will you get that? They're both, they're 34, 35 years old, but they haven't shown huge signs of decline this season. Yastrzemski's power was down, but his on base was still there. His defense is still very good. His defensive numbers have always been very good. So I really like him in right field. Grichuk's defense is a little bit more sketchy. And his on base is down, but his power is still there. So I think you could get something close to that. And so, yeah, with so few options on the market, unless you're willing to like back up the Brinks truck for Stephen Kwan or something, for an everyday outfielder, the Royals went out and got two guys that combined make a really good everyday right fielder, basically. And then I thought it was very interesting because today, Yastrzemski started, but was pinch hit for in the seventh, as soon as they brought in a lefty in the seventh inning, not with Grichuk, but with Nick Lofton. And then John Rave was pinch hit for later with Grichuk. And so I actually almost wonder, essentially the Royals might be running two platoons here. You've got Grichuk and Yastrzemski on one side, and essentially Rave and Lofton maybe in the other, now that Lofton is back. Rave and Lofton are, have yet to show any ability to anybody yet, but we are hopeful. At the very least, you maximize your odds if you put them in a platoon of sorts. And then, Kyle Isbell plays almost every day in center, but we've seen Tyler Tolbert play out there against lefties. So again, the outfield is not remotely good, but those six guys used in three separate platoons might actually elevate the outfield to something, within spitting distance of mediocre.
I'm a little more optimistic if they're going to straight platoon it. I think it can be better than that.
I think the right field side of that, the Grichuk Yastrzemski, I think it could actually be very good.
But I'm a little more optimistic on Lofton and Rave. Rave, like we've seen them, what we've seen of them is always having to hit against everybody, right? Like, and they're at least, Rave was hot when he came back from the All-Star break. I'm open to the idea that if they straight platoon them, that they could settle in and be a little bit better than you are. Not a lot. I'm not claiming that you're getting 1,000 OPS from each of these spots, but I just think it could be a little bit better. I'm a little bit more optimistic.
My concern, the reason I'm a little more skeptical is simply because, strangely enough, John Rave does not, throughout his minor league career, did not hit lefties any worse than righties. Like he actually hits both sides equally well, which good for him. But when he came up, I originally thought, this guy will be, could be very useful in a platoon role. But he actually doesn't hit lefties or righties much differently. And Lofton,
are you going off his minor league numbers? Or are you going off what he's done in the brief snapshot?
No, his minor league numbers. Okay. Minor going all the way throughout his entire career. Now, again, minor league, that may not be that reflective, but like normally when you have a guy who can only hit one side, especially a left-handed hitter, usually you can see evidence of that even in their minor league record. And Rave really doesn't have that. Lofton, he's hit lefties a tiny bit better, but not to the degree of Grichuk or Yastrzemski. So that's my concern. They're not ideal platoon players. I still think you'll get better results if you do that than if you just play them every day. But that's why my expectations are tempered a little bit with them.
Yeah, that's fair. What do you think? You kind of covered Bergert. What do you think they got in Kolek and Falter? Kolek, it sounds like a reliever, maybe going to start. Falter, they got an innings eating type guy, but then you give him to Brian Sweeney. Like I'm a little bit higher on Bergert. You talked about a number 4 starter. The stuff numbers on him are pretty good.
So
and if they refine that a little bit, I'm a little bit more upside on him.
So Bergert, so here's the interesting thing. The Bergert, he has one, you always want a guy who's got like an unusual pitch, a pitch that differentiates. And his 4-seam fastball has 3 inches more rise than your typical 4-seam fastball. 4-seam fastballs are supposed to rise. So that extra 3 inches is very interesting. It's very tasty. He has that elite pitch. The concern is most of his secondary pitches also rise more than the average pitch, and they're the pitches that are supposed to sink. Like his changeup has 6 inches. It's not listed as more rise. It's listed as less drop, which is the problem. You want more of whatever it is that pitch is supposed to do. His average changeup doesn't sink as much as you would like. His sinker, which he's only thrown 7% of the time, drops 7 inches less than your average right-hander. So, and even his slider doesn't drop as much as the average right-hander slider. The only pitch he has that really drops the way, you'd like it to is his sweeper. So my hope with him is that Brian Sweeney and company find him a pitch that he can pair with his rising fastball to change the eye level of the batter. That to me is the key to unlocking something in him. He's already been quite good in his, very brief major league career. His command is not great. The velocity is average, but it's not the velocity that makes him tough to hit. It's the fact that
I don't think the velocity is average. I disagree with that. Not what it's been grading lately. I mean, am I wrong on that? I thought that
his average fastball velo is 93.6 so far, which, for a right-hander, I mean, it's not bad for a starting pitcher. It's right about average for a starting pitcher.
I was thinking I'd read something that like lately he had found some extra miles per hour. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm
possible. I haven't looked at his.
Well, I was reading about so many different people at the deadline. Who knows?
I'm having trouble keeping them all straight in park because we haven't seen them yet. We're going to
exactly
two of them this coming week. So Kolek, the thing that's interesting about Kolek, so this is a guy who was a Rule 5 pick, right? By the Padres, and impressive selection in his own right, before last season, and stayed in their bullpen all of last season, which made him then eligible to go to the minor leagues this year. So, and his ERA wasn't good last year, but his FIP was excellent, 3.5, 357. And this year, after I think a brief trip to the minor leagues to start the year, and he's made 14 starts for them. His ERA is better. His peripherals aren't as good, but his ERA is actually better than it was last year. His velocity is down a mile and a half, but that's to be expected. He went from being a reliever to being a starter, and his fastball velocity this year is 93.7, which is the same as Burgert's. Last year was 95.5 coming out of the bullpen. But what's interesting about him this year is he picked up a new grip on his changeup. He's throwing what they call the kick change, which, the sweeper was the new pitch like 2 or 3 years ago. The kick change out there, I'd heard of it 12 months ago, and you're hearing it spread throughout the game. My understanding, and look, to ask Brian Sweeney about this, or Zach both, don't ask me, but my understanding is the grip is, I think of it as somewhere halfway between a traditional changeup and a splitter.
Yeah.
Right. And the idea is to just kill the spin on the ball, because less spin means more drop. And the spin on his changeup has gone down significantly from last year. The drop on his changeup has improved. His changeup drops more than it used to. You can find some very nice videos of him getting strikeouts on that changeup. That changeup is a weapon. And I think it's interesting the Royals are moving him to Omaha. I think the goal right now is to just let him start and see what he can, accomplish if they tinker with some pitches. The rest of his arsenal, the movement is pretty much in line with major league average, but that changeup could be something. But if he doesn't work out as a starter, I think the potential for him to be a real weapon out of the pen, and possibly even this year, come September or come playoff time, or even, he's a really interesting arm, who hasn't thrown a ton of innings, but like, as we've seen the Royals, there's a couple things they've really targeted in recent years. One is, older pitchers, not being afraid of a guy being older, and also pitchers who haven't thrown a ton of innings and actually have less mileage on their arm. And that's worked out so well with them, with the Seth Lugos of the world.
Ursak.
And Ursak, yes, Ursak being the other one. I like the idea of, they've got a strategy and it's worked for them. Just keep going back to that well. So those two guys are, both interesting in that regard. Bailey Falter is, completely different. He's left-handed. He throws, not hard. He's a finesse guy, although strangely enough, his velocity is actually career high this year. It's at 92.1. And, I mentioned, we talked about Noah Cameron's average fastball being 92.3. I mean, yeah, that's finesse, but 92 is not a complete crafty guy. The problem with Falter is none of his pitches really have a lot of movement. He gets by with command, basically, is good control. Probably being a lefty helps. But his pitches don't have nearly as much drop. Like his curveball is terrible and probably should stop throwing it, but I'm not sure what he would replace it with. He really is a challenge for Sweeney in both. But what I find very interesting is that Brian Sweeney was his pitching coach in the minor leagues when he was a member of the Phillies 5 years ago. So the fact that they've experienced with him personally and presumably vouched for him,
right,
or that they saw something there, or they know how coachable he is, makes me very interested to see the price they paid for him. I mean, Evan Sisk is a quadruple A reliever. Callan Moss was a guy who wasn't even drafted last year. They were drafted only 20 rounds, so that doesn't necessarily mean as much as it used to. But 1 year ago wasn't a 20 first top 20 round pick. Was a 20-year-old out of I think St. John's. He's a college hitter and having a pretty good year in A-ball. 800 OPS. If you were an up the middle player, I'd be like, this guy's got some potential. He's a first baseman, a right-handed hitting first baseman who doesn't hit for a ton of power. The odds that you're going to regret trading that guy seems awfully low to me. So to me, I mean, this is almost like, and Falter, I think, has club control for 2 more years at least after this one, maybe even more. So, 3 years. So it's almost like you're trading for the guy for 2 months because you desperately need to start a competent starter on Tuesday or tomorrow, even in Boston, with the option to keep him around for 3 more years. Now there was rumors that the Pirates were considering him a non-tender candidate after the season, which would explain why they gave him up for so little. Now that may say something about the Pirates and how cheap they are, but the point being is he's not a great pitcher, and if the Royals bring him in for 2 months and you know what, this isn't going to work out, this guy's just too hittable.
He's not one of the playoff starters. He's the Michael Lorenzen this year.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
That's what he is.
And that's fine. And like I said, if he may be a guy you don't keep around for the remainder of that club control, but for the price they paid, so what?
Yeah,
that's fine.
Exactly. All right. Are they better for 26 and 27, ready for a playoff run? We talk about that next after you hear from our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. With free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty, Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. David Starnes Allstate Insurance. Elevate your coverage, elevate your confidence, and drive worry-free. Covering all the important things in your world. Home, business, life, and even the fun stuff, as well as your motorcycle, boat, ATV, and you name it. Get with Dave, and he'll get you covered. You can give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Visit them online or stop into any of their locations, North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. Don't put those insurance needs off any longer. Get with Dave today. He'll give you peace of mind for the things in your life most important to you. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. Rany, is this a playoff team?
I mean, I'm a week away from introducing the playoff optimism meter. Let's put it that way. I'm not even ready to do that yet. But this 3-game series in Boston, give the Royals tremendous amount of credit. They just won a series on the road against the team with the best record in the American League East. And now they're about to go up to Boston. And if they can get through this, if they take 2 out of 3 in this series, you have to feel really good about their ability to just stay competitive with whoever they play the rest of the season. I mean, if you look at their schedule, after this series, they do not play back-to-back series on the road against teams that, if the season ended today, would be in the playoffs the rest of the season. I mean, after this road trip, they go then go to Minnesota, or the Twins are sold off half the team a couple days ago, so hopefully that'll be easier. But after that, they only have 3 road trips the rest of the season, and one of those is the one to end the season, which is in Anaheim and then in Sacramento, where they get to play in a minor league ballpark, potentially with the playoffs on the line, against a team with some very interesting talent, but still not a very good team. So this is as hard a stretch, the last 3 games and the next 3 games, as they are likely to face all season. if they get through this, if they can stack another 4-2, they keep stacking 4-2 records each week, right? And we said last week to get to 86 wins, which is our goal, they had to go 34-22, which was a daunting task. They now need to get to 30-20. Still a 600 record, but you do 4-2 again on the road.
Will they? You're doing an excellent job of saying we understand the math, Rany. Are they?
I don't like binary answers. My answer, if you have to put me a gun to my head.
You like to hide and wait till they're 3 games up in the wild card before you declare them a playoff team. Are they a playoff team?
Right now, no, I would have to say no, but I think that it's going to still be they're a good enough team that they're going to keep our interest at least into the last 2 weeks of the season, which bonus.
That's a successful year. We are talking meaningful baseball here in August. That's not the goal, but we're getting close. Like meaningful baseball in September equals a successful season. If you can play to a couple weeks and you still got hope, I think that's a good year. And they have done that.
Like Soren, they have had 5 winning records in the last 30 years. 2003.
And I want to point out they have had a lot of duress this year. This is not last year where everything seemed to magically go their way.
Exactly.
Guys have gone down all over the place. They still get thrown out on the base paths. They are still a flawed team, but they're in the fight. And if you can fix it, then maybe you can win the fight.
It's impressive. Like it'll be extremely frustrating if they miss the playoffs by 1 or 2 games, obviously. Yeah. But like you have in the moment, you just have to enjoy the fact that they're playing meaningful baseball, right? Yeah. Like for so long that seemed a pipe dream. And as much as you and I may have been overly optimistic and predicted 88 wins this year or whatever, if you take a step back, teams that go from 56 and 106 to 86 and 76, yeah, that sounds great. It's an amazing story, but teams that do that almost always regress the following year. Mm-hmm. The fact that they are at 500 right now, when you consider they were 7 games under 500 at the end of June, this just one more feather in the cap for Matt Quatraro. He keeps this team, steady despite the challenges, and he's done it. I mean, you take basically after the first 3.5-4 months of his managerial career with as hopeless a team as you'll ever see, he righted the ship at the deadline that year. They finished about 500 after the end of July, and then last year and now this year he has an above 500 winning percentage as a manager from like late July of 2023. So I just want to keep emphasizing Matt Quatraro is a really, really good manager. Think about the division. Stephen Vogt won Manager of the Year in the American League last year, right? We talked about that. And the Guardians have basically the same record as the Royals. He came in a much less hopeless situation than Quatraro did. So, like Quatraro, if you were drafting managers in baseball, he's almost certainly one in the top 10. He might be top 7 or 8, and we'll see if he can keep moving up that list. But I really hope they can find a way to keep him around for a long time to come.
Yeah, 26 and 27. Do you like how it shapes up now?
I do. I mean, in part because
is that because you plan on Reagans and Bubic being back? Because I'm not there. They're unknowns in my book.
They are unknowns, but I think because the desperation to go out this winter and get pitching has been significantly alleviated. Maybe eliminated entirely. I mean, we talk about they just trade for 3 pitchers. Technically, they just got 4 starting pitchers this week because they also got Seth Lugo. All right, 10 days ago, they
had Seth Lugo for 26 and 7. Yes, yeah, for sure.
Like they suddenly, they did not have any of those guys penciled in on the roster for next season. So now they have Waka, Lugo, and Cameron, who are the 3 healthy guys they have right now, who you are reasonably, I mean, look, injuries happen. Of course, one of those guys may go down, but the point is they're healthy right now and they're effective right now and they're under club control right now. You have Reagans, Bubic, Bergert, Kolek, and Falter. You only and that's 5 guys. You only need 2 of them to be healthy and effective next season to round out a rotation. Like they could certainly add on the fringes if they want, but they can go into this winter now not focusing any of their efforts on the rotation. And the bullpen has Estevez and Ursig and Schreiber, Steven Cruz. They wouldn't, you're always looking to add to your bullpen because the churn there is tremendous from one season to the next. It'll be very interesting to see if Hunter Harvey finishes strong and they think he's healthy. Given his health concerns, he probably will not. He's not going to go out there and get a 4-year contract. So I could see a scenario now suddenly where Hunter Harvey, maybe they re-sign him if they like what they see, to a 1-year deal with an option or something like that. But for the most part, they can focus all of their efforts and all of the excess payroll space that they have on the offense for next season. And potentially there's a scenario where if Bubic and Reagans look completely healthy, and Reagans we're hoping will be back this year. So if he comes back by the end of the year and it looks good and they're getting good reports on Bubic, they could potentially trade from a position of strength, trade a starter for a hitter. Didn't really work so far with Brady Singer for Jonathan India, but something along those lines is a possibility. Or they just spend money on one premium free agent, presumably an outfielder, but they don't have to go out and spend money on the rotation. That's I think taken care of.
It does look to me like they are employing the Devil Rays blueprint, right? Because they would bring in the Jake Odorizzi's and the guys from other places, and then occasionally they would develop their own ace, and I think that's the next part for the Royals. And we've talked about it. You don't see the fruits of your draft overnight, although they kind of did with Jack Caglione, at least getting him to the bigs. Hasn't had the big production yet. He's hurt, but we'll see if he can get back and get going. But they need a David Shields or a Blake Walters or somebody in the system to come through and be that top of the rotation guy, right? They're not going to find Cole Reagans every time in a trade. That's the next step. Although, when you see Chris Bubic and the way they've turned him, by the way, have you noticed there's a lot of shoulders also with the Royals?
It's interesting, and I do wonder.
Bubic and Cruz.
Yeah, it's 1 year, so I'm not ready to say it's a definite trend, but I have noticed that as well. And you wonder because they've been able to avoid time. Well, and Alec Marsh isn't. That's the other one. Is Marsh has been out the whole year with that. It isn't elbows, and credit to them that they've been able to avoid Tommy John for the most part. It's impossible to avoid entirely. Obviously, Bubic had it, but that was 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago now for Bubic. In part, I think because they avoid guys with truly elite velocity, or not avoid, but it's not their focus. But maybe the way that they're teaching pitching puts more strain on the shoulder than on the elbow. I don't know. It's something I'm definitely monitoring. To date, none of these guys have needed surgery, right? Although Marsh is, you almost wish there was something they could fix. It's been setback after setback with him. But it's something to keep an eye on. But even if injuries are the price of success, that's the Rays have been paying that price for years. The Dodgers pay that price. There's a limit to how much of a price you want to pay, but you'd rather have some guys get hurt than all of your guys suck. We've had that before.
Seen
right?
that.
Yeah, we've seen that. I prefer this. So, but it's something I'm monitoring for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So 9-4 in their last 13. Good ball. You mentioned the series coming up with the Red Sox. They're now seemingly hitting better. Not every night, but they've got plenty of games with 7 and 9, and it's a team that's gotten hot at the right time. I think there's a lot to like about the way they're playing here of late. Still do some things that you're like, come on, really? But you know what they did today? They bunted. They put down, I don't like bunts, but I understand when Salvador Perez is the base runner in the 8th inning, the big guy don't run. So they wanted to get him over to second base. And who was it who put the bunt down?
Isbell?
Was it Isbell? No.
No. Isbell swung away and ended up doubling in extra innings.
Oh, who got the bunt down? Wasn't Rave.
It actually worked, right? They got a run, and
yeah, but now it bothers me because I was thrilled.
Yes, according to
it was Nick Lofton, wasn't it?
Nick Lofton. It was Lofton. You're right, Lofton.
Nick Lofton came in and put the bunt down. And it was perfect. Which is a thing with me. If you're starting to look like you're going to be a fringy player, you better be able to do all the little things. You better have a lot of different gloves in your bag, and you better be able to bunt. And you better not get picked off. You better be able to run the bases. Do the little things. And he did the little things. They start doing that, and we didn't even mention, we've been talking so much about the deadline because it's your first crack at it here. But, I mean, the 10th inning was a work of art. Kyle Isbell, first pitch swinging, best pitch, first pitch, takes it down the line, drawn in infield. I kept going, why are the Jays bringing the infield in? They're going to have a big inning anyway. What are they doing? And they gave up. The bulk of the runs were because the infield was in.
Well, the Tyler Tolbert, that's the other thing. Is the Tyler Tolbert came in.
An easy out if they're back.
Pinch running for Vinny, and then didn't get a chance on the second pitch. Maikel Garcia made the final out of the inning. Finds himself up with the bases loaded, nobody out in the 10th. And like you said, if the infield had been back, it's a line out, maybe a line out double play. And instead it was a single. He's been a fun guy, because the speed alone makes him an absolute weapon. If he can hit a little bit, I described him as somewhere between Terrence Gore and Gerard Dyson, right? Terrence Gore had absolutely no value outside of being a pinch runner. Gerard Dyson had significant value outside of his ability as a runner, both because of his phenomenal defense, but also because, in a platoon role, he was a left-handed hitter. In a platoon role, he was almost a league average hitter. Tolbert is not as good as Dyson as a hitter and probably never will be, but he's right-handed, which means basically he's on the short side of the platoon. He wouldn't, if you platoon him, he's not playing 400, he's not batting 400 times a season. He might bat 150 times in a season, which also means he's on the bench more for you to use as a pinch runner. So Tyler Tolbert's an interesting guy that they've had. But I want to point something out.
Okay.
Since the All-Star break, okay, Royals last, 15 games here? I want to make sure I get my numbers exactly right for you here. So in the Royals' last 15 games, they have scored They scored 7 runs today, correct? Yeah. So 15, 27, 35, 44, 45, 64, 65, 70, 76, 83 runs. What was the most runs they scored in any 15-game stretch before the All-Star break?
Oh, geez. 60.
68.
60.
They scored 83. They scored 15 more runs in a 15-game stretch. So one additional run a game since the All-Star break. That's, all endpoints are arbitrary, but that's a good endpoint. Since they came back from the All-Star break, they have scored 1 run per game more than their best 15-game stretch before the All-Star break. The difference, the offense, I'm not saying it's fixed by any means. I'm not even sure it's competent, but it doesn't suck.
Right.
And the problem, the first half of the season, which was so exasperating, was we said all along, if the offense just doesn't suck, they're a playoff team because the pitching's that good. But it sucked. It's absolutely it was historically bad. Their outfield was one of the worst hitting outfields in the history of baseball for 4 months. And their outfield is still pretty bad. Part of the reason why this has happened is because the 4 main guys in that lineup, Maikel Garcia, Vinny Pasquantino, Bobby Witt, and Salvador Perez, have all been hitting since the All-Star break. You think about it, Vinny was absolutely awful in April. Bobby quietly had one of the worst slumps of his career for most of May. And then Maikel Garcia, and also kind of in May, Salvi, I wonder if all the talk we've talked about him needing rest, I think he hurt his hip. He had a minor injury. It looked like a minor injury. They claimed it was because he was back in the lineup the next day. But around mid-May, he got dinged up and he just stopped hitting for about 6 weeks. And then Maikel Garcia went into a deep freeze for about a month from mid-June to the All-Star break. All 4 of those guys have been hitting since then. So it's not like the outfield is suddenly elite, and that's why obviously they've made trades for Grichuk and Yastrzemski. But the guys that they've been, they meant to rely on have finally been coming through. The other possibility is that Adam Frazier is the difference, and trading for Adam Frazier is actually the reason why the Royals. He's the secret. So he's the straw that stirs their drink because they traded for him at the All-Star break, and they've gotten hot. So everything I take back everything bad I've ever said about Adam Frazier. They love him. They love him in the clubhouse, and if this keeps up, we'll love him on Kaufman Corner too.
That's right. That's right. Listen, they've got a more veteran team. They've got a more complete lineup. They're hitting the baseball more. They can run the bases a little bit better, and the pitching can hold up. They can get Cole Reagans back at the top of his game. They just might make the playoffs, which is a hell of an accomplishment.
I remember when two jabronis on a podcast said the season was over like a couple weeks ago, and
June 15th, I was done. It was coming through that swept by the Yankees, swept by the A's, or lose 2 out of 3 to the White Sox, swept by the Yankees, swept by the A's. That was it.
I would love to be proven wrong yet again.
Yes, I am rooting my ass off that I be proven wrong. I want it to happen. Great stuff as always, Randy. Remember, you can always support the Kaufman Corner podcast by supporting our great sponsors like David Starnes, Allstate Insurance, serving the Kansas City area and all throughout the Midwest. You can give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Visit them online or stop into any of their locations. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance, Gann Asphalt and Concrete, free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warranty. It's one contractor, all things parking lot, no matter what you need done, whether it's building a brand new lot or just striping the lot, Gann Asphalt and Concrete has you covered. And our friends at Whataburger, for a limited time, try the Pico de Gallo burger, the sweet and spicy bacon burger, the patty melt, even the honey barbecue chicken strip sandwich, and of course, wash it all down with a banana pudding shake. If you're hungry right now, go to Whataburger. They're open 24 hours a day, even serving breakfast, 11 p to 11 a. For the good Dr. Rany Jazayerli, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Kaufman Corner podcast.